I'd like to introduce Onir, who is an Indian filmmaker, producer, screenwriter, and editor. Born as Anirban Dhar in Samchi in Bhutan, Onir spent much of his childhood going to the cinema. I love that. He received a scholarship to study film editing at SFP TTC in Berlin, but returned to India and worked as an editor, scriptwriter, art director, music album producer, and song music video director. In 1992, Onir directed and produced his first documentary film on the painter Bijon Chaudhary, Falling Hero. He was best known for his film My Brother Nikhil, based on the life of Dominic D'Souza, and this was a mainstream film with the actors Sanjay Suri, Juhi Chawla, and Purab Kohli. It was one of the first mainstream Hindi films to deal with AIDS and same-sex relationships. Onir has also won the Indian National Awards film for Best Film in Hindi for the anthology I Am in 2011. I Am is considered one of the first and largest crowd-funded and crowdsourced films through social media in India. That just goes to show the power of social media, don't you think? And the film dealt with single motherhood, child sexual abuse, displacement, and LGBTQI rights. Onir has also received the LICO Award, the Diversity Award of the Indian Film Festival of Melbourne in 2019, and in 2020, the Engendered Spirit of Independent Cinema Award at the Engendered Human Rights Film Festival in Delhi. In June 2022, Onir finished shooting Pinecone, a queer love story which is written by Ashwini Malik and Onir. It is currently in post-production and is loosely based on Onir's memoir, I Am Onir and I Am Gay, which he has co-written with his sister, Anirban Dhar Malik, and published by Penguin Viking. I bumped into Onir at the Calcutta Literary Festival when he was talking about this book. And I thought, Onir is sure to have many, many stories to share around his own unconscious biases and his influences to get him to where he is. So I'm very, very grateful that you joined me today, Onir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
So, stories seldom told is our podcast. And some of your stories may well be seldom told. And there are certainly many stories that you share in your films. But even before we explore that, obviously the stories that I've asked you to think about and share are stories of unconscious bias. And so I'm just wondering what you understand by unconscious bias.
I think for being someone who was born in a country or in a subcontinent rather, where your identity was invisible, in literature, in science, in cinema, everywhere, and then at some point you come to recognize your identity when people around you are still not, so, and then you realize, I mean, all through your life, that you have lived a life where constantly you hear other people talk about your identity without understanding how hurtful it is. So it's not necessarily, there are times when it's intended, but very often people who you love, who are your friends, who are people who care for you, you think they care for you, would make certain comments which they don't realize how hurtful it is to someone else who don't identify as, heterosexual or, various other things that come with it.
Sure. And that's the thing, isn't it? When we talk about how people instinctively react, we react from our own, what we see as our narrative, our lifestyle, our normal in inverted commas, whatever that means to us. And unless we live and experience someone else's lives, it's hard. And then people make assumptions and judgments. You're so right. But I wonder whether you could share a story with us, Onir.
So one of the stories is, I think, a couple of years back, and there was a group of us from the film industry, I think about 10 of us. We were traveling to various locations in Austria, and not all of us knew each other, but during those 10 days, we really bonded and, became kind of close friends. Uh, Lots of things to share. And I remember the last day when we all were sitting together by the river Rhine and talking about having wine and talking about our lives. And at one point everyone decides that, okay, let's talk about how was it that they met their girlfriend or boyfriend or spouse with whom they are right now. And we were sitting in a circle, and one by one, everyone started talking about if someone had eloped, someone had, you know, uh, got married to someone who was not of the same religion, and the problems one faced and how overcoming. Some people had separated and married again. So there were all these various stories that everyone was talking. And then as it came to me, I suddenly realized that everyone decided that, without asking me, that I would be uncomfortable talking about my lived in experience of love, of whatever I've experienced. And they kind of quickly skipped me and went to the person sitting next to me. And suddenly I was sitting there with so many people, and I felt that I was not there, you know, and I realized that it was not intentional. They all were thinking actually that I would be uncomfortable. But the truth is that it was their discomfort. The truth is that they are not ready and comfortable to listen to me talking about my experiences of love with someone from the same sex. And they projected their discomfort into me and decided that they will spare me the embarrassment or discomfort of
See, there are
talking.
few assumptions here, aren't there, Onir? But first question I want to ask, because I don't want to make assumptions. This group of 10 or 20 people, are they all from India?
Yeah.
Or are they from different national? Okay. Let's get
Yes.
that clear because I didn't want to have
There
even
was a part
assumptions.
of the industry that went for this,
No.
yeah,
So there were 10 of you, 12 of you,
yes,
all born and brought up in India and sitting around and having this conversation. And then they are wanting to be kind to you. They want to
yes.
protect you from hurt or pain, and they jump further, and they go to the next person. So what did you do at that point, Onir?
Honestly, I didn't do anything. I just, because it was so sudden, you know, that I kind of, when I think about it, I feel that I just retreated. I suddenly felt that I don't belong. Till then, I felt that I was a part of this group. And at that moment, for me, it was like, no, I don't belong, you know, and I don't feel that I would want, after the two got over, to continue, uh, you know, my friendship, because very often people say that, oh, it's important to have discourse, have discuss with people. And then if you really think that I've spent my lifetime doing that, and at some point you're exhausted, you're exhausted in constantly trying to validate your identity. And now I'm at a point of life where I am like, it's your shortcoming, and it's not my job in life. It's not my duty to spend my time, energy, effort to constantly educate people about learning to respect someone else.
That's
You know,
fair enough. But how did you feel at the time? Were
I
you
felt
hurt?
I felt very hurt. I literally felt that I would want to, you know, I don't know, when I imagine myself, if I think of that evening, I feel that I just pushed back my chair from the circle. Now, I don't know if I actually did it, but that's my
But it's just,
memory.
yeah, yeah.
Just go into a space which is darker, because I think I felt really, almost tearful, because I felt that they're my friends. They all know I'm out and proud, and yet they're so reluctant to, there are people I consider as friends, to be able to address my identity, you know,
And can I
my,
ask another question? Because I wonder whether it's relevant. Perhaps it's not. How long ago was this?
This was about, I think, just before the COVID. So
Oh, so
2000.
now. This is
Exactly.
not
That's right.
35 years ago, not a long time ago.
It's
So it
recent.
can't be 35. You weren't doing films at that point. You began in 1992. But no, I'm just thinking about you and your story of unconscious bias. But you're saying at one level that you've been there, you've done it, you've explained yourself so many times that it's not my responsibility anymore. But equally, and forgive me for pushing you a little bit here, but you're still feeling it, right? It's not washing over you.
The
Because you're
thing,
feeling the hurt. And
absolutely.
therefore, do you not see it as your responsibility?
For me, the thing is, these kind of hurts, are again like when you are born in a country that is still not willing to accept you as equal, you're facing it every day. So if you are constantly only addressing that, how do you, I mean, what is your life? I need to live my life beyond the validation of a heteronormative society that finds itself unable to learn two basic things: equality and kindness. you know and beyond a point, I feel that I can't be sitting and going through this. I'm still doing it in various spaces. But if I have to address this all the time, I won't be doing. My films address this.
You do. You
you know
work very hard
I
at addressing these things, yes.
exactly. So I use my personal experiences of what the biases that I feel in my narrative. And that is how I feel that these same people, some of them will definitely get to watch my film, and they will know what it feels to be made invisible. It happens, so often. Like, I think a week before, on the 30th was like me and this friend of mine, we shared birthdays. And I had gone because it was her 50th birthday, and I was there. And there were like 150 people, and few of us were asked to talk. And after I talk, and then her father comes, and there's some other people, takes the mic and says, and constantly the entire talk is about the boys finding the right girl to dance with. Yeah. And you are just standing there, you know and you suddenly realize that that's kind of not acknowledging your presence. And in today's world, where all over the news marriage equality is being talked about, I'm there all over the news talking about it every day. My presence is not hidden there in the crowd, because and I feel that everyone is laughing and just not acknowledging, you know and that's what I mean. That is, how much do you what do you take the mic and say, hey, no, I want to dance with some guy here. You're After a point, it's exhausting, you know and you don't want to be there. You just want to say that, okay, I rather be in spaces where people know how to respect, people know how to celebrate your identity. And you slowly start looking for, and so often, like, that's why I was telling you'll go to a friend's house who's straight, who loves you, married, and all they will be talking about is, oh, my children, they're growing up, and I'm so glad. They're actually looking at a girl. I'm so glad. Ha ha ha. Everyone laughs. Meaning what? Meaning that they're scared that their son or daughter would be looking at someone from the same gender. It's a problem. That's why, and that's when you realize that despite all the love and affection that you get, they don't deep down accept your identity.
But may I ask, Onir, because that's a very powerful thing you've said. You used the word invisible earlier on, and the fact that you are invisible in society, your identity, who you are, and the fact that people don't accept you. But I just want to understand you better. So if I could ask you, when did you come out? And more, equally importantly, What level of support did you get from your immediate close circle, as in, depending on your age, your parents, your siblings, your family, your best friends, whoever they might have been?
So actually, till I was in college, I didn't even know what being gay was, because I'm born and brought up in Bhutan, and there was no reference point. How would I even know? I just thought that it's normal that generally boys get physical with each other. It's a part of growing up. I was hopelessly falling in love with one girl after another. Everything was a disaster. But and it was only in 1986 when I saw this film called My Beautiful Laundry.
Oh, yes, brilliant film.
And
Superb.
I was in tears and I realized, no, this is me and this is the word. And luckily that was the time when I was also, it's not that physically I was not, I had, I was I had physical experiences before that with same sex, but I thought that it was like just normal, like nobody talks about sex, so it's just a part of that.
I'm
And
just growing up.
everyone
Yeah, yeah.
is kind of a thing, and it's a hush hush thing anyway. Yeah. But it was only when I was in college studying comparative literature that my professors started talking about Greek literature, about ancient Indian literature, about what Shikandi meant, what Lord Ayappa stands for, the entire concept of Lesbos and Sodom, and, the art of the concept of love in ancient Greece, the concept of the male and female principle being a very part of Hindu, discourse. And that's when I slowly started realizing, and it was only, I think, when I went to Berlin to study that I would, that I was in a space where I didn't even know, like in India during college time, I didn't even have the knowledge that, oh, it's criminalized, whatever, nothing. It was just that sex is a taboo that one doesn't talk about so much. And then I went to Berlin, and I think the awareness and experience became much more open. And when I came back and I then came to Bombay, I think there was not one instance when I sat with my family or friends and said that, hey, I'm gay. It just organically happened with whoever was close to me, that I hid nothing, that my straight friends came with me to, underground pubs that used to be there at that time, voodoos, to see what happens. And I would go with my friends, and, at that time it was early days of internet and chat room, explore myself. And that's when, at some point, I again don't remember, and my sister told me when we were writing the book that, at some point you told me that, Didi, I have to tell you that I think I'm gay. And my sister said, yeah, that's okay, that was it.
She
you know
probably knew it all along. She's waiting for you to tell her.
and I think that was, I remember my father, when my brother Nikhil released, I was in New York at a film festival, and there was a film festival in Calcutta by Sathi who wanted to felicitate me. So and it was an LGBTQI film festival. My father went there, and he happily went on to stage and he said that, oh, all this good, but you all should go and watch the film at the theater and support, you know and there was never a talk about marriage, or that those pressures that never came in my house, and I knew that they just organically accepted that at some point, I mean, be it my who I was in love with at different points in my life, just like they accepted my sister's lovers. And the same is with my brother, as a dean of in a science institute in Bangalore. He would just share all my articles with the students, saying that you need to understand. So, somewhere I've been extremely fortunate that I've not faced what you call any kind of trauma, either within myself that, oh my God, what am I? you know, there's been sadness, there's been anger, but not directed towards myself, saying that, oh shit, what am I?
Yeah.
No.
And that's
Uh,
wonderful for one's own self-worth, isn't it? Which is
yes.
why I think you're saying, even though people still see me as invisible and don't acknowledge, as recently as April 30th at a birthday party, even then, you have sort of enough self-belief about your identity and you say that's okay. But no, I mean, these are difficult stories and important stories for those of us who don't experience what you do to understand. I wonder whether you could share another story with us, Onir.
You know, one of the things, before I get into the story, recently someone I was at an inclusion talk, and there was this lady who says, Onir, I really want to do something for the community, and I care and whatever. Tell me, what could I do? How could we help you guys? And I'm like, the only thing that you need to do is not help us, not try to help us. All you actually need to do is help yourself become a better human being. Because if that is what the heteronormative world did, all the world would be a better. Because I, today when I look at the opposition to for equal marriage act, and I think that, am I a superior human being that I can celebrate my heterosexual friends' wedding, dance at the Sangeet, feel happy at their happiness, feel happy when they have children, feel happy when they buy a house with their partners and whatever? How come, you know, these people feel, don't want to see me happy doing the same things? How is it going to destroy their world? If I get married tomorrow, how is it going to affect my neighbor's marriage? Right? If I open a joint account with my partner, how is it going to stop him or her doing the same? So I just don't understand this, not able to celebrate someone else's happiness.
I
What's
wonder, O'Neill, because I often think about this, as you know, when you and I were chatting in Calcutta, we were talking about it, and I just wonder, and I'm wondering what your opinion is. Do you think that not just the heteronormative, the people, whether it's race, whether it's religion, whether it's sexuality, able-bodied people or disabled-bodied, whichever, if an individual sees themselves as, say, better or superior,
okay?
um, then I think instinctively what tends to happen is they'd start patronizing the group that is different to them. So in your case, heteronormative people, and I'm making an assumption here, and maybe this is not a fair guide to why people behave like this, but they might think, oh, aren't we lucky that we're heterosexual? Oh, poor thing. Onir, whoever, that person is gay.
You're not assuming that is
And
mostly.
those kind of assumptions are being made. And then if you're saying that and you're thinking that, whoever the you is, then there's a level of patronizing coming in.
Yeah.
Or let's leave him out. What is he going to say about his relationship? We'll pass him by to the next person.
Also, entitlement that we will decide how much of freedom you can get, how much of equality is okay. Why do you have to be like this thing that people will say? No, why do you want to be on your face? About again, a month ago, I was at the Meghalaya International Film Festival at a panel discussion about representation of LGBTQI in cinema. And the audience was a young group of students from mass media and various such places. So one young student, must be about 19, 20, gets up and, sir, I have a comment to make. I said, yeah, what? He's like, I support LGBTQI, whatever, whatever. But these days we have noticed that there are some gays who are too gays, you know and what do we do to help them to be less gay, not so much on your
I
face,
don't.
so I'm like, you know I'm looking at you and I think you're too straight, and it's disgusting for
Did
me
you
to
say
be.
that?
Yeah, I told
Oh,
him.
well
I said,
done, you. Brilliant.
and just tell me, what will you do to change yourself, because it's really troubling me to look at you like this.
What did he say in response?
So he was getting like all worked out, da, 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 and I kept repeating, and after a point, I think he understood. He sat down. He didn't
I mean,
leave.
But
Okay, but what is interesting is once the session got over, he came to me and said, if you're not angry with me, can I have a selfie with you? So he told me, he posted a story with my photograph, and he wrote that I learned so much today to become a better human being. So that meant
bravo.
me, that, because there were a lot of people after some of my friends saying that, Onir, you just attacked that little guy. I said, he's 21, he's not a child, and by that time I was working. So he needs to know that what he's saying is absolutely unacceptable, you know, and he needs to understand that it's hurting to be able to address it. And he did that. He posted that, and for me that was a small reason to smile, that someone maybe a small, you know. So that is what I meant when you asked that, don't you think that you need, sometimes you do have that discourse, sometimes you're just, oh, not again,
Yeah, no, I
So,
get that. Yeah. It's hard work, isn't it? Because when I think about again, I'm thinking of that word you initially used right in the beginning about the word invisible. And how does that feel? And there are other people who are not gay, but who might see themselves as the minority, who would appreciate what you're saying. Um,
you
could be
I,
one single woman in an office full of men, perhaps.
I think women overall generally are more supportive, but when it comes to minorities, like suppose in a country like ours, I mean, most people of different faith, whether they're minorities or majority, are always united when it comes to hating us, unfortunately. And, I very often tell that when I speak up for other minorities, because I feel very, very strongly, being a minority, the need to speak up for other minorities, or rather for what is wrong. And I tell them that, honestly, when I speak up, I'm not doing a barter, but it saddens me to see your silence when it comes to my rights. I will still continue talking about you and what is wrong, but it deeply saddens me to see the silence that, you are inboxing me that only talk about this, but all of you are silent when it comes to my journey, you know, to my desire to be treated as an equal. You know.
That's hard though, um, because when any one of us, and I'm talking to you specifically, when you're working hard at trying to show the world to be inclusive, to be accepting, to be non-judgmental, and yet you are being treated negatively by the same people you're trying to support, it must be very difficult.
Yeah.
But then, you're trying and you make films, and that alone, for those of us, because this podcast is heard all over the world on you, where can they see your films?
Right now, three of my films are on Amazon Prime, you know, and they're also on Disney Hotstar. But I don't know, there are also sometimes cut off in certain areas, so I don't know if they are available in every place. Most in the US, Canada, UK, I know mostly it's available on these platforms, and people have seen it because it's been on Netflix and it's been on Amazon, and kind of. And some of our films have come to the theaters when it released. Like My Brother Nikhil played in the theaters in
That's right.
US and UK and other places.
Yeah.
So did I am. But yeah, so this whole thing also, I just realized that one's journey has not been of these kind of biases only about one's sexuality. It has been also very often about one's skin color, you know. And, it's very funny. Like, I would go to a place like Kashmir where I have a lot of friends, and they would be talking about, someone else, be it an actor or whatever, and very casually people would say that wo to looks both kala kala hai. In a very, which is like, I'm like, you're telling that to me, how is it okay? So these days I make it a point that you know, I say that, I don't like these whiteys.
No, it's interesting because, as you know, I live in London, and I happened to go for a blood test this morning, and the lady who took my bloods was of Indian origin, Gujarati. And I'm always curious. So I started speaking to her, and I said, I'm from Kerala. And the first thing she said, but how can you be from Kerala? You're not dark skinned. These are the assumptions. And I said,
Yeah.
I'm dark skinned enough to be somebody from, to be a Keralite. But these are the assumptions and the stereotypes that pervade India under so many levels.
Yeah.
But from your perspective, Onir, you're challenged with unconscious biases on a daily level. You're making films. You're challenging other people like us, the viewer, to think differently. But what do you do for your own peace of mind and self-worth? Because you have to have that to keep going. What do you personally do?
I think one is making one's films, because that's where you're expressing what you feel. That is what is a way of challenging that, saying that no, I'm not invisible. The fact that, when I wrote the book and chose a title that I'm Onir and I'm gay, is trying to defy that invisibility, and claiming the pride that I have in my identity as a filmmaker, as a human being, as someone who is gay. So I feel that for me, my work becomes an important space to constantly uh, counter invisibility, to counter biases that one faces in life.
That's good. That's great, Onir. For those of you who have not seen Onir's films, you now know you can get them on Amazon, hopefully, depending on which country you're living in. I've so enjoyed hearing your stories. They're moving and they're powerful, and I appreciate that you shared it. So, Onir, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, and thanks for being such a wonderful listener.
Thank you for listening to Stories Seldom Told. I am Smitha Tharoor. It is you, the listener, that makes this podcast what it is. If you like this podcast, please do share. If any of you anywhere in the world feel that you have stories to share, please do connect with me on social media at Smitha Tharoor on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or on my company page, Tharoor Associates, on Facebook. We will be back next week.